Hello, everyone. Well, it is the strong end of the week. How you doing? It's Friday, folks. Good to see you. What a gorgeous day outside. It's hot, and I'm talking hot and loving it, loving the seasons. How are you? How you doing? Good to see everyone in here. Hello, Warrior Queen. We're going to have her on next Wednesday. Y'all put that down. I think we're going to have a beautiful group of people coming on. Let me just say hello to everyone. There's Dragon. There's David. How you doing, David? Boy, you've been busy working in here. Good to see you. Boy, everyone, I'm having to do the roll thing. It's like, all right, Sylvia, good to see you. And Freeman and Mario, good to see you. Ryan, hello. Lost in Space. How are you? Naomi, good to see you. So glad that you're joining. Twisted Isby, peace. Joyce, I love this. How are you doing? Think agape love always. Hello. Cheesesteak 22. Jerry, good to see you, my friend. And Blue Bottle Bunny Farms, how are you, my dear? It's always good to see you. Trust everything is going well down in Tennessee. Dance on waves. I can dig that. Did everyone listen to the song? Hey, Al, how you doing? Would you like the blue pill? Well, absolutely. And then for those in-betweeners, we got the purple pill. But we don't talk about that. JH, good to see you. Jamma, hello, Dan, how are you? Good to see you. Lori, man, there's just it's far out. That's all I can say. Far out. It was a term that I really enjoyed. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I guess when it comes to that point where you look at your life and, you're about to make that transition, I just got to say, what a time to have been alive on planet Earth. I mean, far out. That's all I got to say. Let me just invoke favor upon you this day. Cooling favor that favors you, favor that meets you, and favor that greets you. May also the rivers of more than enough always find them way in you. And may there be nothing missing, nothing broken in your lives. Full and complete restoration. Peace, man. So that's how we started out, everyone. Hello, Pamela. Good to see you. Let's see. I don't know how that one goes there. But in any case, well, we got a lot going on. So happy birthday to those of you having a birthday, those ones that over the weekend. Congratulations. You're still here and the clock is still counting. I just want to say thank you to all of the folks that listen to me over in the Artist First Network, the Steiger Perspective. I was talking to my producer, and we're about to break 10,000 live listeners around the world. The growth on the Steiger Perspective, over 500%. So thank you. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Monday, got Trina coming on. Let's see. All right, I'm just trying to get my notes here. And so one of the things I found out just from a business analyst point of view about this recent activity with YouTube. So I'll just give you how it was told to me this morning. If you go back and you listen to the last conference call that Google Alphabet's management had with shareholders and investors and in basically the financial markets. When Google acquired YouTube, it was quite expensive. YouTube really wasn't defined. It was still kind of the Wild West. That's why it grew. But long and the short of it is YouTube has failed to meet revenue 2 quarters in a row. And YouTube's platform is ad revenue driven. It's an advertising model. And how it's worked was that the partnership with YouTube and the creators was that there was a split on the revenue. YouTube took a majority share, about 60, depending on where you were on scale. It's a sliding scale, but in any case, about 60 to 70%, and then the other part was shared with the creators. And it worked beautifully. If they left the model alone, it would have continued to absolutely deter all competitors, but it have not. So Google said that ad revenue for third quarter isn't looking good. All the indicators is that companies are pulling back on ad revenue, and they've got a lot of choices. I mean, Google's not the only game in town. They may have the majority share, but you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got other platforms. So apparently, and I don't know what knucklehead came up with this idea, since they can't grow revenue organically and in business, so you're just going to have to bear with me on this because this is important. In business, when you look at your P&Ls, you have operating cost, and then that's typically your general selling and administrative cost, and then you have what you call your COGS. That's your cost of goods and services. Well, in the YouTube model, being that they have this partnership with creators like myself, when you reach a certain plateau, then you're allowed to participate. The higher the numbers, the more the perks. So that model it's a cost for YouTube. And now that Google has to carry YouTube on the books, it's also a hit and a drain on Google. And so apparently, when they came out with this strategy, it's a short-term knucklehead. I mean, I talked to an analyst today in New York. They see it for what it is. They realize that this has potentially got litigation written all over it. Google knows that. So what they apparently have come up with is you put in these guidelines now where you allow a podcast to go live. The revenue is still ticking. On a podcast like mine with the audience that you and I have, it's about $12, maybe $15. That's what YouTube would get from it. And then you can see how that is split up. Well, now with the policy of review afterwards, and if they deem it inappropriate and therefore restricted on revenue, you miss out on that which you thought you were making, because you failed to meet the censorship. And as a result, you take a platform and the amount of creators that YouTube has, and apparently it's happening to everybody. I was surprised that channels like the Leak Project, we've seen what happened with Secure Team. These are channels that have, hitting to 500,000 to 2 to 3 million subscribers. And when you start taking their revenue away, the way they've done this, on a daily basis, that's going to add to the reduction of COGS, which then goes to the bottom line because they've actually increased revenue by the tactic. And then, so that is another strategy to take a look at. Kind of brings it down just into dollars and cents. YouTube has to grow revenue. And again, I think, in fact, what Google said on their last conference call, I found it was really interesting. They said that the transition of YouTube has not been as smooth as they would have liked when they had anticipated. And they said, in fact, that there was obviously more review, and that's a code word. More changes are going to be coming in. Who knows if the current CEO stays? These jobs are like that. Every CEO serves at the pleasure of the board. Every CEO, particularly of larger companies, but even smaller ones, usually the board asks for your resignation when you get the job. They don't use it, but in many cases, and it's been used on me, the tactic has that, even when I was sitting on the board, it happens. So anyway, let me just get on with life. But I just thought I would bring a little sanity to this. But listen, the protest was protest. If you listen to my show last night on the Steiger Perspective, you'll get the full scope of what's going on. So let's move on. We got a lot to cover here today. So I put together, first of all, I want for us to review sigils, folks. Sigils. We all now know the cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle. Pandora's box has been exposed. The emperor has no new clothes. Sigils. And I am practicing. Next week, I don't know, we got a pretty full week next week, but I'm going to be teaching you why on your sigils. Now take a look at these sigils here, folks. All right. Notice each end. There is no line that is allowed to merely continue. And there's a reason for that. We're going to get into that next week. Maybe, who knows? It might be a week from that. I don't know. But very interesting. And as we're seeing, we live in a world of sigils. I contend, and remember the book. I have the book right here, but I also have it in the PDF form. And when I was putting this together for today, this is Al. As we all know, I just call him Al. Abdul al-Hazred. This is the cipher manuscript known as the Necromonicon. And in the opening series of our magic series, we talked about this book. This book is really quite fascinating because it was in this book, if you remember, we found that in the correlation between the Liber Lilith, the Chaldean, the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's very similar. The cohesion is very slick. So we talked about the beings that were here, the gods. He gets into how they came about, and we won't get into it because we have to move on to the subject matter. But what I wanted to show you, this book actually introduced conjuring. And as you get more into the studying, when you get into the Golden Dawn, Regardie's work is quite fascinating in as much that I tell you, you really should get this book. I have it on PDF. It's a long one, and it's one you have to take in small bites. But as you understand how sigils, incantations, conjuring work through, also, as we learned from Abdul here, portals. And we understood how these gates were opened up. we began to see, the sigils. And again, notice every line is not left open-ended. And in any case, what we began to find out was that sigils, when operated or placed in certain configurations, will in fact open portals. Literally, portals. We saw this play out, and isn't it so freaking weird? I was a great fan of SG-1. I enjoyed that series, enjoyed the spinoffs. But what really drew me in, never really understanding, was the Stargate itself. And if you remember, you had 6 symbols, sigils, and then you had the 7th one, and that would open up a wormhole. Do you know where they got that from? Well, apparently, the story dates back all the way back. Definitely to Moses, and further beyond that. He learned it from the Egyptians. The Egyptians, hard to say. There was so much going on there in the East and China, in the Mesopotamian region. It was all taking place. So this is where we begin to learn how the signs, the sigils, begin to work. And if you remember, we learned how invocation can easily be done by simple hand messages. Now, where did we see that? Well, if you go back all the way to the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, Katu was the one using, again, hand signals, which we then could easily interpret as sigils, symbology. Fascinating. If any of you want this, you can begin to see it takes on, now that you know what we've known now, go back and reread it, those of you who have it. It's powerful. Look at these sigils, folks. This is probably some of the strongest psychic, just looking at it, has a particular psychic impression it will communicate to you. This one particularly, but there are others in here. And again, we learn how to begin to do the invocation, the incantations, and the conjuring. All right, got a lot more to go. So that's pretty cool. By the way, speaking of which, got this little jewel in. I haven't had time, probably going to do it over here in the next week or so. We'll definitely get into this. Yeah, because this has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about in the 6th and 7th book of Moses. I saw someone said, I thought there were only 5. Yeah, so did I. Who would have thought? So kind of getting for a basis of what we're looking at, we're talking about Moses. We're talking about Moses translates to Moshe. Moshe translate literally to Magus. Magus translate to magician, master magician. And when we begin to understand the roots of today's ideologies, theologies, they're really nothing new, particularly with the virgin birth and the child that is the Savior. As you see, it goes way back. But so we're talking about, why is it depicted that Moses the master magician has horns. Well, isn't it interesting in this rendition how you see God being represented at the top? God has horns as well. This is good mind coitus for the end of the week. Now, another mystery, I covered this in a number of programs, but it's always interesting to revisit because now you begin to see something else going on here. This is the original crucifixion. I said original because the one that supposedly happened never did happen, but the metaphoric imagery dates back to that guy. And when you begin to see, whether it's hieroglyphs, pictographs, symbology, or sigils, you can begin to see how it really has its roots in Egyptian folklore, mythology, theology. Here you can see this is Ra, that translates into Father God of Yotro. So Kapatra, the transformations, is the figure dispensing the sacred word, which goes back to Yod, Yohe, Vahe. Now, in the symbolology, what you begin to find out, and when you begin to understand sigils and how they make a major impact into all of this, it begins to tie much of this into, to me, it's much more manageable in comprehension. It's like you got a salad, but it's hard to determine what's in the salad. This begins to tell us. So Moses with horns is well depicted even into the Hittites, the Mesopotamians. It dates back to, now, there is also another theory that says, well, the Renaissance era and Michelangelo and the others, they got it wrong because the Latin somehow was the dirty Latin when it was translated, which really means rays came out of his head. And that's what they're saying. Now, I don't know how you get rays and horns. I've looked at it. I think these cats were a lot more versed in Latin than anyone today. Me, they actually say. So we've got this strange depiction. Now, when we think about this, it's a shock to some, but actually talking with the planets, remember, the planets manifested themselves, yes, many with horns. In fact, as you go through the annals of mankind's history, in the mythology, the pantheons of gods, even patriarchal gods, monotheism, they're still depicted with horns. This is the sigil for Moloch. Interesting, isn't it? So we begin to understand a little bit more, and we're going to get into the books, because the books are basically nothing more than conjurations, conjuring spirits, angels. It's on a level that You have to ask, who gave these instructions? Also, I have to ask, created in what image? I don't know. But it is within the pantheon of the planetary gods themselves, everywhere from Diana to Zeus himself, to the Virgin Mary. Seamlessly. Now, this is one of the Renaissance painters, Rembrandt, I believe. Look of what's going on here. So let's take the path that Moses did not have horns. They got it wrong. What he had were ray beams coming out of his head. I don't know what's more freakish than the horns or light beams. Now, I knew in a certain version back in the early 80s that Moshe, when he descended out of the Kivav, shone, had to wear a veil all the rest of the days of his life because his face radiated, his whole body did. Now, I did a whole thing in the Sactarium Omegam. If you go back and look at that in the archives, I got into this, into the actual Hebraic letters that said what happened to him on that spaceship. So this is, again, the sigil of Moses, the Elohim. We recognize it as a six-pointed star. Excuse me, 5. It's a pentagram. I always like it because you get, I always see Star Trek. You look at that immediately, yeah. But then they get more complicated. Now, this I wanted to show you because it is in the folklore that while in the desert, Moses and his assistants, Ebenezer, we had, excuse me, the name escapes me, Aaron, that Moses couldn't talk. I often found that odd because, he grew up. If he existed, he grew up in the court of Pharaoh. It was said that he was studied 40 plus years with the high priest, high magicians, sorcerers. It is said that you can take the symbols of an alphabet, in this case, dating back to the Israelites, that master sorcerers could literally take those symbols again, and as you see depicted here, literally open up portals. So when we start looking at this, we have to begin to ask ourselves, well, what's really happening here? Now, I found this one interesting. So if you do your research, you begin to find out that, well, others, sculptors, said, well, maybe it was rays of light. This begins to take on a whole new in-depthness. Because, listen, traditions, as we see in the modern era, come and go. And when you begin to talk about, the traditions that have been passed down through the millennia. Now, this one I found really interesting because I think that this may, in fact, depict more of what Moses or Moshe may, in fact, had looked like. Could you imagine So what was the physiology that changed that would cause in the genus Homo sapien to suddenly start emitting light? And as you begin to trace back the symbology to the sigils, you can begin to see there's a lot more to this than what we have been told. Maybe they knew something, I don't know. Now, this is Solomon. This is a creature, cloven hoof, with horns, bringing, and if you know the scribe behind him has horns, but the creature here is bringing Solomon magic, sacred wisdom. I wanted to close out this because this is one of the stranger ones. And as we continue to go forward on this, do you know what this is, folks? I can't see in the chat room. Well, I'll help you to see what this is. This painting shows a huge dome-shaped craft hovering over the tomb of Jesus, where Mary Magdalene came to visit his tomb, where an angel also appeared. Dun, 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 dun. Weird, huh? Yeah. That I find a little interesting. Now, I don't know what the Renaissance did. I contend we were going through regions of space. Radiation exists all over. There's all forms of it. You know, maybe we come in these ebbs and times of enlightenment. Yes, exactly, Blazing River. In fact, I got the book, The Magic Mushroom and the Cross. But my point to all this is that what's being taught today has been so synthesized, so filtered, homogenized, pasteurized, that it barely represents to anything of what even our recent ancestors, I mean, seriously, let's go back to the Renaissance. How about the emergence of, coming out of the Dark Ages? What happened? Something happened. So, got the book. Now, I do have this on PDF. So this is the 6th book introduction. This is by Johann Schibel, and it's a great read. Moses, the Magical Spirit Art. Now, these 2 books are really all about magic. It's written as such, and it's about the angels, demons, how you conjure them, how you control them. It's an interesting read. So this is translated from the ancient Hebrew. This is the 7 seals of the spirits. You can see what it is. It's basically the magic, Moses, the Magical Spirit Art. This is what embraces the whole of white and black art, black magic or necromancy, and all the ministering angels and spirits, how to cite and desire the 9 courses of the good angels and spirits. Ready for this? For Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. The most servable angels are Salathiel, Michael, Raphael, Uriel, together with the necromancy of the black magic of the best ministering spirits of the Chimia at the alchemy of Moses and Aaron. Folks, when I found out about this is freaking blew my mind. It blew the whole imagery of what I was taught as a young man. Nothing like this ever was taught in any classroom, setting, group that I was ever a part of. It would have been pretty far out, actually, if they had told us maybe what was going on. So this was it says that this was hidden from David, the father of Solomon, by the high priest Zadok as the highest mystery, but which was finally found in the year 330 AD, among others, by the first Christian emperor, Constantine the Great, and sent to Pope Sylvester at Rome after its translation under Julius II, Pontiff Maximus. Are any of you making the connection here? So wait a minute. Time out. So we go 300 years from the supposed event that it's not in any Roman record, but in any case. Now we find out Constantine. Constantine was the one who brought in monotheism into the Roman Empire. It was Constantine who set up then the one God, the supposed Christian God. So we're talking the blackest, darkest magic, folks. This is no nonsense here. This is serious shit. This is the kind of stuff that puts you into abysses that you have no freaking idea how you got there. This is the type of stuff we're talking about. Now, Emperor Constantine finds this, gets it translated out of the old Hebraic language. It's virtually lost, like the Greek. The original Greek doesn't exist. And from here, Constantine brings in a whole new religion. Seriously? You don't find this a little odd? And then it goes through how it perpetuated, that's not the right word, how it was then known to the Vatican that was set up under Constantine. And look at what we have today. Coincidence? Now, the instructions on it. These two books were revealed by God, the Almighty, to his faithful servant Moses on Mount Sinai. In this manner, they also came into the hands of Aaron, Caleb, Joshua, and finally to David and his son Solomon and their high priest Zadok. Therefore, they are the Biblos Arcanim, which means the mystery of mysteries. Entice you, does it? So apparently there were not 10 commands given by themselves. I mean, if you follow the storyline, Moses was up there for 40 days. Now, he said, I actually have read that he didn't realize that he was gone that long. Makes sense. Okay. Conversation with God. And so here we have the names of God: Adonai, Soter, Emmanuel, Ethic, the Tetragrammaton, Ashir, Jehovah, Zaboth, the Lord of hosts of heaven and earth, that which appertains to the 6th and 7th books of Moses, as follows. And so you get into all the names of this Elohim. Then we get, it also gives the power, might, and wisdom to rule over the spirits of heaven and hell. Time out. So a mortal being following the recipe can begin to ascend to a place where he can control legions. Over the ministering angels and spirits of the fourth element, as well as the 7 planets. Hear also the voice of thy God, wherewith I give thee the 7 seals and the 12 tablets. Shem, Shel, Hamforth, that the angels and spirits may always yield obedient service to thee when thou callest upon them and citest them by these 7 seals and 12 tablets of my omnipotence, and hereunto thou shalt also have herewith a knowledge of the highest mysteries. Therefore, thou, my faithful friend, dear Moses, take the power and the high might of thy God. Wait a minute. That wasn't an old book of Exodus that I read. It certainly wasn't in Leviticus. Yeah. And then you have to say, now you have to be very, very specific. I mean, the one thing I do know about this deity, it's a legalist. Everything is under contract. So this is the conjuration, the first one, the seal of the choir of the ministering archangels. I don't know about you, but that just gives you, whoa. I mean, can you imagine walking around that on your chest? I got the seal of the choir of the ministering archangels. Don't mess with me, Jack. So it goes on. I, N, a servant of God, desire, call upon the Och and conjure thee through water, fire, air, and earth, and everything that lives and moves therein, and by the most holy names of God, Egos, Theoros, and I won't go through all of them. You can see they're extensive. The words by which Solomon and Manasseh, Cryptus, and Agrippa conjured the spirits, and by whatever else thou mayest be conquered, that you will yield obedience to me, Robert Wayne Steiger, the same as Isaac did to Abraham, and appear before me this instant in the beautiful, mild human form of a youth, and bring what I desire. This the conjurer must name. All right, I say win the lottery, right? So, and you know, the thing about that is, if you're smart, you realize that why that doesn't work. Anyway, I digress. But I'm just saying, part the Red Sea, part a river, bring fire down from above. You see where this is going? Now we get on. The most useful ministering archangels of this seal are the following, with their Hebrew verbs, retus, and I'm not that well versed in Latin. It was a time I was better at it. But so you have Uriel, Ariel, Zachariel, Gabriel, Raphael, Theoska, Zywolok, Hemon, Yel, Tiriel, Delan, Sewro, Samharal, Zoranas, and I think it's Rauno, and Yomalak. And it goes on with Howel and Thywel. So anytime you see an EL, AEL, on the end of an angel, that is of the highest class. These other angels most likely are Seraphims are of it higher rank, but just not that of the archangel class. And as you can see, the particularly great secret and special use of this seal is that if this seal is buried in the earth where treasures exist, now isn't that odd? They will come to the surface of themselves without any presence during a full moon. Now stop and think about this. I lived in many different regions across the United States. I've had gardens. And I know in certain parts of the country, the most remarkable thing happens. You can till the ground, you can clean it of all the clogs and rocks and everything else. Inevitably, within the next week or so, rocks will literally rise to the surface. It happens, folks. So this goes on to the second seal. The name is the true seal of the choir of hosts of the dominations of the ministering angels. Here's the congregation. Again, each one of these are about control, handling wealth, fortune, fame, power, favorable circumstances, being in the right place at the right time, having just, seems like you always come out to be the head, not the tail, always above and not beneath. These books are remarkable inasmuch that you can see it's using the same theos of what most people have always understood as the Pentateuch. Now, this is considered to be the Kabbalah, the pseudo Torah, but nevertheless, when you see the remarkable acts that are put down, let me ask you, for those of you who are versed in reading the Bible, is it not a mystery in the book of Joshua? The book of Joshua is one of the most amazing books. He was, there was a time where I thought that this whole heaven thing existed, that I wanted to go talk to this dude, Joshua and Caleb, two dudes that I could sit down and have a beer with, have a conversation, because these cats, they were apprentices to the two masters, Aaron and Moses. And there's, Ebenezer, there's a couple of others. But so think about this. Isn't it interesting that we read in the story where the Syrians had laid siege to Jerusalem, and they conjured Gabriel up. And it was said that in less than an hour, one ET, one spirit, one slew 180,000 men, the animals, nothing left alive. Oh, I got to say, I'm glad that none of our politicians have awakened to this. Could you imagine? Holy crap. But anyway, now, the only thing I have a complaint on this book is that these sigils are, and if you can find, and I have, a person who can read Hebrew, it's very difficult. And again, you have to get these conjurings exactly right. One false step, that's why the high priest, it is written, had a chain around his ankle, as if he screwed up. He pulled it. And the other thing was they had bells on their toes. Yeah. Because that's how everyone could know He's still alive, man. I'm glad it ain't me. I tell you what, when I lost that bet, I thought he really was going to screw this one up, you know. And the high priest comes back out on and alive and happy for the experience, no doubt. And so again, each one of these. Now, see, this is the seal of ministering to the cherubim and the seraphim with their characteristics. So each one of these conjurings, using a seal, control, folks, the only way you can say probably numbers not being able to count. All of them are conjuring. And you have to look at this as well, that thou canst be compelled to appear before me in a beautiful human form, and give what I desire. Now, it's real interesting about the golem. I still contend the golem are being used today. I believe that in Israel, that their highest priest in the darkest of their belief systems know how to produce these golems. I believe they exist. I believe the ability of other master sorcerer, witches, magicians can also conjure beings in human form, not humans, and they don't last very long. That's for another time. But again, as you can see, and I'm going to start going through these a little quicker. We can do this slower if you want, but you'll just let me know. So this is the seal of the angels of power. Now, I find it interesting that they're using, late 17th century add-ins here. I wish they hadn't done that, but again, no one knows the true name of, Jesus Christ. But in any case, we get into this conjuring. And again, it's all about, what do you want? What is it that you desire? And again, now this is the 7th book. It picks up where the 6th book leaves off, but it gets into a much more, well, I'll just show you as we get in here. This is the 12 tablets of the spirits, the first tablet of the spirits of the air. Again, this is the congregation. This is how you conjure it. Jehovah Father, Deus, Adonai, Elo, I cite thee through Jehovah Deus, Shaddai, I conjure thee through Adonai. These are spirits, folks. To carry upon the person, the first tablet of the spirits of the air, whose areas, quick as thought to help, will relieve the wearer from all necessity. And as you go through these, again, find what you can, and virtually anything that you're looking for. Those who are a little more advanced, you probably are picking up on this pretty quickly. Again, you have to say the names correctly. Remember, everything has to be by the letter. But with the knowledge that you gain from this, when you start beginning to work your own sigil magic, you're now beginning to see that there is a host of the unseen. Look at the 8th tablet of the spirits of the sun will help attain honor and wealth, and they also give gold and treasure. I'm going to pull out of here, and we can pick up on this later. I want to point out something throughout history. In all the great persecutions of the Jewish people, after they were scattered by the Romans, wherever they landed, It was only within a decade, and they controlled all the commerce, majority of the wealth. Today, it's the Hasidic Jewish people, the diamond market. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, do you think possibly those who know the secret mysteries, that they have more than just fortune, coincidence working for them? Think about this, folks. As we progress, you begin to see we live in a world of magic. And if spirits exist, and if they seem to be really interested in us here on earth, now you can begin to see those who probably have a firm understanding of invocation, conjuring, casting, how it works. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's another view that is not taught to the general public. Could you imagine this on your Sunday sermon? Forget your Bibles today. We're going to be going into the fifth. What was that? Okay, yeah. The sixth and seventh books of Moses. Now, I haven't had time to read this, but if it's anything like the first five, this should give us a great insight into God. I'm conjuring what? Yeah, this anyway. But this is how we gain knowledge. Now, I've got these on PDFs if you want them. And one of the copies of the PDF, it's unfortunate they have a page that is blank, but the one that we just went through is on my Kindle, so I fortunately can't get that to you. But anyway, it goes to show you, folks, there is so much available to all of us. And it's not evil. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. I mean, I often wonder, what does a spirit do? I mean, wouldn't boredom be the worst thing of all for a spirit? So if I get invoked and said, hey, you, I need you to go and find me wealth. Now I've conjured and and I've done everything right. I think many spirits would be all too happy. Hey, we got something to do. Where are y'all going? I'm sorry, you can't come. We're going, and I say that in jest, but I also say it in all seriousness. Anyway, it's been fun. We're going to continue on this. We have got years of material. And I will say this, come what may, we're always going to be able to meet as a group. That's an assurance. And we're going to grow. And the more powerful we become individually, collectively, corporately, as a group, yeah, there won't be a whole lot that will be able to come against us. I'm just telling you. Are you on board? I hope so. All right, have yourself, let's see. Well, someone has my name. Can you start showing proof of your past jobs, etc.? Well, and I don't know how to say this to you, but if you have any due diligence, go look online. You can go look at my LinkedIn. The fact is, I really don't need to prove anything to you or anyone else. I've lived my life, and what my experience is exactly what I talk. So you're a skeptic? Hey, we all love skeptics. You're welcome to stay in here, but we go and we operate by a rule here, Wayne Steiger. We show respect. We always show favor. And if we got anything other than that, we don't do it here. This is a time where people come together. We edify one another. We are open-minded to understand that many are trapped by their religious bigotries, their religious ideologies. They have not freed their minds. Their spirits are definitely not free. But here we look at all of it. We welcome all beliefs, all faiths, because we're all human beings on a journey, a spiritual journey. And the physical body is just merely a stopover. All right, folks, be good. Have a great, strong end of the week. See, we didn't say the other one. You know, enjoy it. It's going to be hot here in the U.S. You know, I'm looking forward to fall. I think I got like about 8 weeks, and then, oh no, excuse me. I think meteorologically it's September 1st, but yeah, so we got a ways to go. All right, be good. Probably see you on Jeff Doherty's channel on Sunday. Monday we'll be here with Trina. Tuesday with Patrick, with Garrett, with Talking with the Planets. Wednesday we'll do our round table with Warrior Queen. Raise her some money to put food in the food pantry, and then Thursday is an off day because it's the 4th year. So, all right, peace. Love you. Thank you for being here. Love yourselves, and the person around you will love you a lot more. All right, bye.